Welcome. Doing a late night headlines. Let's see. Let me get everything squared away here. Let's see here. Alright. 1 minute. We go ahead and get started. One second, let's see. Alright. Alright, first we're going to talk about Jordan. Jordan demands FBI turn over all communications with Twitter as probe of censorship heats up. Alright, let's talk about this news here. House Judiciary Committee Republicans led by incoming Chairman Jim Jordan, demanded Friday that the FBI Director Chris Wray turn over records of all communications and payments the law enforcement agency had with Twitter, signaling aggressive investigations of social media censorship next year. Again, y'all already know I'm very, very skeptical about what's going on here. But, we'll see. Jordan's office said the release of internal files by Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, had unmasked a, quote, ongoing surveillance operation that exceeded FBI investigative authorities and that resulted in a coordinated misinformation effort between the FBI and Twitter to suppress and censor free speech. Now, we knew this was going on all along. At least one person in this government is speaking out against it and trying to do something about it. But again, I don't think anything gonna happen. The deep state is too powerful. But, quote, we are investigating politicization and abuses at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, as well as big tech censorship of conservatives online, Jordan and Rep. Mike Johnson wrote Ray in an oversight letter, quote, newly released information shows the FBI has coordinated extensively with Twitter to censor or otherwise affect content on Twitter platform. These documents show that the FBI maintained this relationship with Twitter apart from particularized need for a specific investigation, but as a permanent and ongoing surveillance operation. These revelations sadly reinforce our deep concerns about the FBI misconduct and its hostility to the First Amendment they added. I'm glad he talked about the First Amendment in this because they were indirectly curtailing our First Amendment rights of free speech. I mean, they literally shared a Slack and a back doorway where they can go in and let Twitter know people they wanted to censor, people they wanted banned. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The letter demands that Ray turn over all communications between the Bureau and the social media giant from January 1st, 2020 forward, singling out 24 Twitter executives the committee is specifically interested in all requests. Oh, but before I get to the requests, my computer is being really slow, so let me turn off the little music I had in the background here. Hopefully that'll let me turn off one more thing that's in the background here. Hopefully that'll make my computer a little bit better because the shoulder dropped a couple times. Here. Alright, here we go. So he said, all communications between or among employees or contractors of the FBI referring or relating to content moderation on Twitter's platform all documents and communications between or among employees or contractors of the FBI and employees or contractors of the other executive branch entities, including but not limited to the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Executive Office of the President, referring or relating to content moderation on Twitter's platform. All money transferred by the FBI to Twitter and any other social media company since January 1st, 2016 for purported law enforcement purposes, including the dates, amounts, and specific reasons for each transfer. Now, I think that's a big one right there. Actually showing the money that changed hands. We already know that they gave, I think, around about $3.5 million to Twitter for their efforts in censorship and putting together a team and all that other stuff. So I wonder how much they actually spent on other platforms like Facebook. We know they were big with Facebook and all other platforms. How much money did our government actually give to these companies to take away your free speech? Republicans take over the House on January 3rd as Chairman Jordan will be able to subpoena the FBI for any of the evidence requesting in the letter that the Bureau doesn't volunteer. And Jordan told Just the News earlier this week that he's planning a wide investigation of the FBI and Justice Department practices, including censorship, snooping on congressional investigators, the use of confidential informants, and the targeting of parents as domestic terrorists. Now that's a really big one right there. They actually called parents domestic terrorists because we care about what they're actually teaching our kids. It's ridiculous. Recent revelations, he said, quote, show you how political the Justice Department has become and why we need to expose it all, Jordan said, because I always say that the first step in stopping it is to make sure everyone knows exactly what went on. And I totally agree with that. Information is power, so they need to go and investigate and give us more information on how bad the FBI really is. We already know it's bad, but I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that we don't even know about right now. The FBI has acknowledged extensive and regular contact with Twitter and other big tech companies, but insists it never ordered any firm to censor content or take, quote, direct action. It's bullcrap. That's exactly what they were doing. Instead, it said it flagged content so they can take whatever action they deem appropriate under their terms of service to protect their platform and to protect their customers. Jordan letter to Ray said such activity and the FBI close coordination with big tech threatens American civil liberties. And I 100% agree with that sentiment. All right, let's talk about. No, we're not gonna go over this right now because this one is kind of long about inflation. Maybe I'll do a whole thing on this because this one is kind of long. So I won't go over the inflation and recession thing right now and decline and hegemony. I'll do that another time. Big news today. Jury finds Tory Lanez guilty of shooting Meg Thee Stallion. Y'all haven't been following it. Canadian rapper Tory Lanez, he faced more than 22 years in prison and possible deportation after being found guilty of all 3 charges against him in a 2020 shooting case involving Meg Thee Stallion. I still don't believe they proved within a reasonable doubt that this man shot this woman. It could have been her friend that shot him because both of them had residue on their hands. So I mean, they didn't really prove to me within a reasonable doubt. But Lanez was accused of shooting Meg Thee Stallion in the foot from his Cadillac Escalade. He was found guilty on Friday in Los Angeles of felony negligent discharge of a firearm, assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and carrying a loaded and unregistered firearm, according to TMZ. Now, a handful of witnesses took the stand in the 2-week trial, including Meg Thee Stallion herself, and Lanez and his driver from the night in question did not take the stand, according to the outlet. Lane's legal team was in touch with immigration officials prior to the verdict. Read and sources close to the situation have been confirmed that it's likely he will be deported, the outlet noted. During the testimony, Meg Thee Stallion identified Lanez as a shooter, TMZ reported. She also alleged that Lanez offered her $1 million to keep quiet after the incident. Now, she claimed Lanez pointed the gun at her and shouted, "Dance, B, dance," dance B before firing. Megan Thee Stallion, former best friend Kelsey, who was also present at the time of the shooting, didn't positively identify Lanez as the shooter, but confirmed she did not pull the trigger herself. Her testimony from September, where she did identify Lanez as the shooter, was submitted in the case, according to TMZ. Other witnesses also took the stand in this case. The physical evidence showed gunshot residue on both Kelsey and Lanez, and inconclusive DNA evidence was recorded from the gun itself, according to TMZ. The sentencing date has been set for January 27th. So, I mean, I don't know. To me, I didn't find anything within a reasonable doubt to prove that he actually pulled that trigger. So in a case like that, I thought it would have been a hung jury or something like that. But they found him guilty. Alright. Prince Andrew gets the boot as King Charles evicts him from Buckingham Palace. My question is, what took so long? You know this dude is disgusting. We know the stories behind Prince Andrew, and they kept him in there for that long. But the Jeffrey Epstein saga lives on, even in disgrace. If the disgraced pedophile financier doesn't after his meeting his maker in a suspicious suicide in 2019. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Even if the disgraced pedophile financier doesn't meet, I don't know what they're trying to say there, sorry. But on Friday, newly crowned King Charles III tossed out Prince Andrew and removed him from all facets of royal life after the prince was caught up in the sex scandal. The Daily Mail, always on top of all royal stories, wrote, the Duke of York was told to no longer use Buckingham Palace as an office space, effectively severing his final tie to his old life as a working royal, according to the new report in The Sun. Any presence at the palace is officially over, a source was quoted as saying. The king has made it clear he isn't a working royal, he's on his own. Again, my question is, what took so long? We know this dude is disgusting. We heard the stories. Him hanging out with Epstein and all that stuff. So why did it take until now for them to sever all ties with this disgusting individual? Andrew had already stepped back from public life 3 years ago after a disastrous BBC interview, but the 62-year-old will now no longer be allowed to use the palace address for any future correspondence. His small staff will also reportedly be looking for jobs. He also loses any remaining titles, including that of the Colonel of the Grandeur Guards, a title he inherited from his father, Prince Philip. He will also lose his armed security. Wow, that's big. And instead will have private security furnished only with tasers. He deserves worse than that. He should be locked up. It's been quite a fall from grace for the prince as the Epstein scandal broke. Photos of Andrew and his sex traffickers present began turning up, and one in particular cost him dearly, the infamous snap of him with his arm around 17-year-old Virginia Joffrey. And I've showed that picture before on previous videos. It might have been on my old channel. She claimed she had sex with Andrew on several occasions at the behest of Epstein, and she finally brought a suit against him. He settled in February for a reported $12 million. Here's here's where it gets even weirder. The Mail writes, quote, Andrew is set to join King Charles and other high-ranking royals for Christmas dinner at Sandringham tomorrow. Now, how awkward is that dinner going to be? Now, Epstein is like a lingering disease. Every time you think it's over, it comes back. But my thing is, why the people that actually done the deed, that's in the book, we all know the book exists, how come are they still allowed to walk on the street? How come the only two people that got locked up for this was Epstein, and we know what happened to him and Maxwell? How come the other perpetrators are still able to have their freedom? It's disgusting. So let's see what else news we got going on right now. Let's see. Anything Mao can do, I can do better. Xi Jinping. Putin references Ukraine war for first time in response to Zelensky's D.C. visit. And I did a video on that visit. It's just ridiculous that he come here holding up his flag in Congress and all the politicians fawning over this dude is disgusting. Let's see. The left is furious about J6 report. Take on Jimmy Thomas, who they blame, is hilarious. Let's see what else we got. Any other news? Really hasn't been a big. What else we got going on here? Highly decorated Navy SEAL team commander fell dead at his San Diego home. Took his own life, officials say. That's sad. Right before Christmas, man. That's sad. And I had read about this earlier. He had just got a promotion. He was just named head of SEAL Team 1 in I think it was in June. Mitch McConnell was okay with purple-haired crazy lady sitting at omnibus table, but no House Republican was present. I don't know what that's about. I'm not really worried about that. McConnell, I can't stand Mitch McConnell. He's terrible. He's a rhino. And especially when he said that, basically the number one priority is to send all this money to Ukraine. He's disgusting. Caroline Ellison admits she and Sam Bankman-Fried conspired to mislead FTX. I've done a whole video on that, so y'all could check that out and check out my thoughts on that. President Trump on January 6th committee report, he said they didn't address the election or the role of federal agents, and that's a great point. There were agents there, provocateurs, and they actually opened the door and let some of them in. I mean, it's crazy. Disgraceful. Biden regime delays paycheck to National Guard members for Christmas after announcing another $45 billion giveaway to Ukraine, and that's sickening. I told y'all, America lies. America lies under this president. He don't care anything about Americans. So let's see what this is about. Earlier this week, Senate Republicans, under the leadership of Mitch McConnell, came to an arrangement with Democrats on a $1.7 trillion spending bill to avoid a government shutdown. I mean, trillion. People don't realize how much a trillion really is. The bill would give another $44.9 billion to Ukraine, where it disappears into the ether. According to roll call, the package includes $858 billion in defense spending, a nearly 10% increase over the previous year, and $787 billion in non-defense spending, close to an 8% increase. It also will provide roughly 85 billion in supplemental funding for Ukraine and disaster. If y'all hear that, I'm sorry. That's my dog whining in the background. Can't stand that dog. But despite the price tag, the bill does not secure the open U.S. border with Mexico. And the bill does little to help working Americans or their families. Now, National Guard members were informed this week that their check will not come until after Christmas. This is sickening. And I mean, that just enrages me because y'all know I'm a veteran, so anything military, I'm about it. And that's messed up. They're doing that. The people that's charged with protecting our country is getting last in this. I mean, they're gonna get, but Ukraine and Zelensky, they're gonna get their money though. Let's see. Attorney David Clements rebukes recent Reuters hit piece. They're terrified Americans will learn the truth about elections. Beijing Betsy whistleblower, a third Betsy DeVos wealth comes from China. Hold on one second. Let me go get this dog. Hold on one second. All right. Let's see what other news we got here. Let's see. Daily Wire. Cleveland reveals the true meaning of Christmas. We talked about Tory Lanez already. California lost more residents than any other state in 2022, U.S. Census Bureau. Yeah, let's see what's... And it's happening more and more. It seems like every year, California, New York, all these leftist-ran states, people are running from. People are running from these states because of their policy. It's all about policy. You know, you're overregulated, you're overtaxed. The U.S. Census Bureau reported Thursday that California lost more residents than any other state this year, with over 300,000 people fleeing the state, marking the third consecutive year that California population declined. California joined 17 other states this year that experienced a population decline compared to 15 and D.C. in 2021. The Bureau reported that California's 39,029,342 population lost 343,230 residents, primarily due to net domestic outmigration. However, the 0.3% population decrease did not match the 0.9% fall between 2020 and 2021. Now, according to the Bureau, the Population Estimates Program uses current data on births, deaths, and migration to calculate population change since the most recent decennial census date, and produces a time series of estimates of population, demographic components, and of change in housing units. H.D. Palmer, Deputy Director of External Affairs at the California Department of Finance, told the Sacramento Bee that the state has seen a historical trend of net loss of residents to, quote, domestic migration for years. Quote, some people, for reasons other than demographics and more politics, try to jump on some of the out-migration numbers, Palmer said. Residents across the state have been escaping Governor Gavin Newsom's rule of California in droves, especially since 2020, when the Democratic leader and the primary left-wing legislator shut down the state in response to COVID. Amid high taxes already killing the middle class, skyrocketing crimes, rampant homelessness, and an unaffordable housing crisis. The one-party system on the West Coast essentially turned California to a feudal state, or as some conservative leaders called it, a socialist nightmare, and I would agree with that. Quote, if you talk to demographers, they'll say that one of the factors is that the cost of housing, Palmer said, and that continued to be a challenging issue for the state. Now, the Hoover Institute at Stanford University published a report in October showing that California business headquarters left the state in 2021. Quote, at twice the rate in both 2020 and 2019, at 3 times their rate in 2018. In the last 3 years, California lost 11 Fortune 1000 companies whose exit negatively affect California's economy, the data report reads. Such companies include aerospace, financial services, real estate, healthcare, and manufacturing businesses. Quote, policies have driven business and housing costs so high that companies and people are leaving the state for more affordable, less regulated, and less taxed locations. The report further noted, quote, this process will continue until the state's political leaders make very important policy choices that create a different future for California, one that honors its remarkable past. Aside from the Golden State, the biggest population losses in the U.S. were in New York. There's a negative 299,557. Illinois, negative 141,656, according to the Bureau. And the Bureau also reported that Florida was the fastest growing state in the 2022, with the annual population increase of 1.9%, resulting in a total resident population of 224,244,823. Now, who would have thought people would flock to a state that has freedom? Who would have thought that? Quote, while Florida has often been among the largest gaining states, Christy Wilder, a demographer in the population division at the Census Bureau, said in a news release, quote, this was the first time since 1957 that Florida has been the state with the largest percent increase in population. Trailing behind the Sunshine State, the second largest gaining state was Texas, with 230,961 new residents, and the third was North Carolina, which took in a population increase of 99,796 people. All 50 states and the District of Columbia saw positive net international migration, with California 125,715, Florida 125,629, and Texas 118,614, having the largest gains since reported. So all in all, people are fleeing these leftist enclaves, or whatever it's called. People don't want to live in those places, rightfully so. Alright, let's see what else we got here. Dr. Malone. Can't really talk about Dr. Malone here. He's saying some good stuff. Florida judge says schools hiding kids' gender transition doesn't, quote, shock the conscience, throws out parent lawsuit. I don't get that. That's ridiculous to me. So they're saying that basically parents don't have rights. English bishop fires back at church choir for making famous Christmas carol woke. Let's see, the Federalists talk about the 18 Senate Republicans that voted for the Democrats' sleazy $1.7 trillion spending bill. 18. All of them have to go. They're going to spend us into oblivion. Like Ron Paul always said, we don't have a taxation problem. We have a government spending problem. They spend. South Dakota University reaches to protect kids, but not adults, from explicit shows on public property. As Christians face death sentences. Nigerian court can and should overturn its dangerous blasphemy laws. Let's see. Without Christmas, there will be no United States. It's time to tell the truth about colonialism in Africa. 50 years later. Let's see. FBI admits it meddles in numerous companies, not just Twitter. AOC is the only Dem to vote no on this bill, but for such a dumb reason. Let's see what else we got going on. Like I said, it's not really much news today because Christmas. Tucker Carlson lying to find the politics of 2022. Let's see what's going on here with Tucker Carlson. Let's see. Let's see if there's a video. There's a video, I'll play it. Fox is funny sometimes. Sometimes they need a YouTube strike for playing them.
Well, good evening.
Let's see. This is, believe it or not, one of our last shows of 2022, so naturally we got to thinking about this year. So I guess he's just talking about some stuff that happened in 2022, so let's see. He said, but we're going to start with what might be the dumbest lie ever told. Vladimir Putin blew up his own natural gas pipeline to Europe. And I did a whole video on that. Y'all know I don't believe, well, I mean, that makes no sense. If he wanted to turn off the pipeline, he just turned it off. He didn't have to blow it up. So, I mean, that was make-believe from the beginning. Now by doing this, Putin crippled his own economy and weakened his own strategic position in the middle of a war. But he did it anyway because, well, just because that's the kind of evil behavior Vladimir Putin is famous for. He's so evil. He's not only a threat to us, a direct physical peril to Omaha, Bangor, and San Jose. Vladimir Putin is so evil, he's an existential threat to himself. Stop that man before he blows up more of his own pipelines. He's being sarcastic. He's being sarcastic. But yeah, there's no way he would do that. Like I said, if he wanted to shut off the pipeline, he wouldn't have to blow it up. He could just turn it off. We know that from everything, from what I understand and what I've been researching, I believe that Great Britain are the ones that actually blew up that pipeline because they didn't want him to give oil over, to send that oil over to Europe. They didn't want him to have that leverage. They wanted to take leverage away from him, so they blew up the pipeline. Alright, let's see. Holiday donations to food banks and toy drives dwindle due to inflation. People pull back. And notice that the mainstream media, they're not even talking about inflation. They're not even talking about recession. They're trying to keep people in the dark, but people know what's going on. They see how much stuff costs right now. Mark Cuban weighs in on gold and Bitcoin. He says both a store of value, and I agree. Gold and Bitcoin and silver too. Silver is good too. Despite inflation, consumers are still splurging on luxury spirits. Facebook parent to settle with Cambridge Analytica class action suit. Y'all remember Cambridge Analytica? They were big in the news during the 2016 election. Let's see, Tesla sends Shanghai boss and aides to jumpstart U.S. output. New York Post. Former Santa Monica Mayor Rex Minter ID'd as plane crash victim. Giants Saquon Barkley finally on cusp of first playoff opportunity. Let's see. 19-year-old shot dead during brawl at Mall of America. It's crazy. You can't even go to the mall no more. Let's see here. What else we got? Let's see. Conservative brief. Hold on. Before we get to the conservative brief, let's see. American Wire news first. Your head will explode. Fairfax school busted for hiding kids' national merits for sake of equity. What? That is crazy. That's crazy. See, merit don't matter. Merit don't matter. It's all about race. They're all about race baiting. They don't care anything about merit and how hard you work. Trump turns table on Dems. Tax return witch hunt calls on GOP-led House to demand Biden's financial records. And that was the point I made. It says president now. They shouldn't have never did that because his tax records turned out to be a nothing burger. And now what they did is set president. For now, they can request anyone's tax records. So since they requested his tax records, which is private information, you can request anyone's now. So why not? Why not get Biden's financial records? Let's do it, and I guarantee we'll find some money from China up in there. Let's see. Conservative brief. Criminal investigation in Georgia County heats up over voting equipment breach. Joy Behar may leave The View according to her own words back in 2019. Joe Biden's approval rating continues to nosedive. Paul Sperry unpacks the Trump-Hillary double standard. Arizona Governor Ducey agrees to dismantle shipping container border wall in settlement with Biden admin, and that's ridiculous. You can't even protect your own borders. If the federal government is not going to protect your border, you would think your state governor would go in and do that, but he doesn't. He's another rhino. House Republicans want Pelosi to testify before January 6th committee. Slap in the face, McCarthy hammers omnibus bill ahead of, that's an old one. They already voted on that. Let's see. Congress guts budget rules and misses chance to cut spending. I mean, do you really think government would cut spending? Look at their track record. Let's see. Let's see here. Alright, let's check out U.S. military personnel are lining up on a wait list to hunt an extremely dangerous scorpion in Kuwait. Wow. Los Angeles accused of fabricating artificially low homeless numbers. So let's check this out. Let's go into this news. The Los Angeles Homelessness Service Authority, a joint commission created by the city and county of Los Angeles, released a report this week that was upbeat, claiming that the county had witnessed an increase in its homeless population of only 4.1% between 2020 and 2022, a significant dip from previous years. However, the report was swiftly condemned by homelessness advocates and homeless individuals as wildly out of touch with reality. And KCBS TV in Los Angeles found several areas where the report was plainly incorrect. It wasn't incorrect. They actually lied. Jessica Rogers, a volunteer who helps LASA perform its count this year, told KCBS that LASA did not get the count right. Nowhere close, nowhere near. She told KCBS that when she went to help count the homeless in February, she was, quote, scared for her life. In one area, she claims that she reported a count of 297 homeless individuals, but the LASA report inexplicably stated that 0 homeless individuals lived in that area. Wow. Rogers stated that she tried to report the numbers through the counting app provided by LASA, but it repeatedly crashed, so she texted in the number, quote, I remember very well what I saw and where I saw it and what it was like, Rogers said, and to find out that Lasher recorded 0 people on the street that night is heartbreaking and gut-wrenching. Now, Dan Fleming, president of the Economic Roundtable nonprofit, told KCBS that, quote, yes, we're questioning some of the numbers, and specifically pointed out that according to reports, 335 areas that house homeless individuals in 2020 were reported to have 0 homeless individuals in 2022. That is dirty. More importantly, Fleming states, when it's obvious, the numbers do not accurately reflect the extent of the growth of the homelessness problem that is clearly visible driving around the city. Jay Handel, chair of the Homelessness Committee for the LA Neighborhood Councils, said that he would not rule out artificial manipulation of the numbers by Lasher, which has been under fire for not doing enough to fix the homelessness problem in the area. Quote, what do they say? Numbers don't lie, but people lie. Handel said, I wouldn't count it out. Knowing how unhappy the county and city are with Lasher, it would not shock me. It's corruption everywhere. It's fraud. This is fraud. A Lasher chief program officer, Molly Rensman, vehemently denied any manipulation of the numbers, but did state that the app that was used in the previous count may have been a problem. So they blame the app. But the woman said she texted the information, and you still didn't accept that number. So what does that tell you? Quote, I wouldn't say it didn't work. There were some challenges, she said. Raisman also claimed without evidence that the 297 individuals counted by Rogers may have been counted in another area of the city. What? That don't make any sense. And insisted that the count this year was accurate. Quote, our goal is to get a regional estimate. Assigning the data per census tract was complicated this year because of technological issues. We believe we got the best regional estimate we could. That is bullcrap. If the woman said she tried the app and the app didn't work, and then she texts y'all the numbers and y'all still didn't put the numbers in, then that's not an app problem. That's a person problem. Y'all didn't input it even though y'all got the numbers. Let's see. What else we got going on here? Alright, let's check out some other stuff. says climate change scam. Help protect endangered whales from corrupt environmentalists. Naval lieutenant who refused COVID jab faces $75,000 bonus payback. Sodom and Gomorrah update. Freaks to stage world's largest drag queen story time in Florida. Border Patrol Union boss rips McConnell for funding border security overseas, defunding at home. Socialist Christmas. Venezuela gives users of its social credit system a card. $2.67. What are you supposed to do with that? Elon Musk responds with shock after November illegal alien numbers released. San Francisco neighborhood turns into a living hell after city sees entire street to bombs. Let's see. General Washington's Christmas message for those complying with the Great Reset. Let's see what this is about. This is by Dr. Joseph Sanson. He has a Substack. Contemplating infinity causes one to recognize both the miracle in life as well as absurdity for life. If you imagine an outward expansion through an over-expanding cosmos as well as an inward expansion to an ever-expanding submatic world, it increased the awe. Of course, if we are dealing with infinity, we have to recognize the possibility that it is not expanding and has always existed. Still, there is then the issue of whether the idea of expansiveness is simply consciousness, whatever that is, creating an illusion of expansion by focalization, potentiality becoming reality. The limitations of perception clearly come into play when discussing these topics, let alone the limitations of linguistics or mathematics and their inability to encapsulate higher levels of truth. The above exercise can bring on a sense of awe. How about the absurdity of it all? What is he talking about? Here we go. He's talking about 1776. Here we go. George Washington was leading his troops undetected across the Delaware River, launching a bold surprise attack on British-occupied Trenton. This bold attack initiated on Christmas night, was a deliberate attempt to catch the Hessians, German mercenaries, off guard after a day of Christmas drinking and celebrating. This bold attack on Christmas night was born out of necessity. British troops occupying America had reached 43,000 soldiers. That is a lot, especially for back then. To make matters worse, a once 25,000 soldier strong Continental Army had dwindled to 4,300. Wow. As if this was not bad enough, on December 31st, most of the Continental Army's enlisted terms would end. This would, of course, mean the end of the American Revolution and likely the end of a rope for Washington and the Patriots that were signatories to the July 4th Declaration of Independence. Arguably the most underrated general in history. General Washington was an American Caesar, and as such would not allow failure. But you gotta remember also, I'm gonna add here, that George Washington lost more wars than he won. But the ones that he won, he did win, those were the important ones. Those are the ones that actually made a difference. Delayed by weather, Washington led 2,300 men across the Delaware, and what was supposed to be a pre-dawn invasion occurred at 8 a.m. Some American soldiers had no shoes and left the bloody trail as they marched through the snow on their way to the battle. An hour later, 900 of the 1,500 unsuspecting and mostly hungover killed or captured on the morning of December 26th. So more than half. This was the first victory for the Americans and the turning point of the war. The Continental Army remained intact and eventually swelled again. James Madison, John Marshall, Aaron Burr, Alexander Hamilton, and James Monroe, who was severely injured, all participated in the battle. So imagine that. Imagine if our congressmen were the ones that had to actually go in and fight before, instead of sending our men into war. But when they send our men into war, they actually have to go in with them. Imagine it would be a lot less fighting, I think. And our people that run government are a bunch of cowards. They would never do anything like that. But some of the Hessian prisoners were later paraded through the street as evidence on the Continental Army victory. George Washington was an indispensable man. General Washington did not win every battle, and often his battle plans were too complex. He was no Napoleon. Napoleon was also no Washington. Our view of Washington is largely influenced and skewed by the aged patriot rescued by Dolly Madison. General Washington was a commanding figure at 6'4" at a time when such a height was very uncommon. Washington formed the Continental Army when he was a continental government did not exist. He held this army together and eventually won the war, an American seizure. Washington did what no other man had ever done. He denied the crown and retired from public life after 2 terms as president. We would attribute this to his old age at a time and no heir. Still, like winning the war, he did it. This was a miracle. In the current unrestricted war by globalists seeking to dismantle human civilization, there may be no indispensable men at this time, or at least none has arisen. I'd have to imagine if Washington were alive today, he'd have organized a sort of continental army by now, and we know who he is. Soldiers marched barefoot and bloody at the tail end of a mini ice age into the Battle of Trenton. We aren't seeing that type of courage yet, although there have been some heroic medical doctors that have resisted a great expense. Even a few of them has lost their medical license. I would add to that. These twisted transhumanists are trying to tamper with the miracle of life and turn the planet Earth into the island of Dr. Monroe. Yet we're still in the stage where our politicians are pretending it isn't going on. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I can't really say it here. Check out my Patreon where I really talk about what the transhumanists are doing and what the sticky icky is really doing to you. But they act as if things are normal, and the American and the world population are being targeted with bioweapons. Frequently point out that our politicians are cowardly, corrupt, or simply out of touch for a reason. Still, if you indulge me in another thought experiment, imagine peering into that microscope again. This time, you see sometime within the next decade, the prosecution and indictments of those that collaborated with that bioweapon, elected officials, hospital administrators, academic administrators that forced students to get, that thing, employers that did the same, big tech companies, big media conspirators that censored information and all that stuff. Imagine all of them facing justice. Those at the health organizations and the World Economic Forum, all seeking to create a global tyranny and pleading that they were only trying to make the world a better place by giving people that bio stuff. Uh, I don't think that's ever gonna happen because it's still willing idiots out there that don't know what's going on and try to explain it. They still don't get it. But y'all know what the Great Reset is really about. Again, I can't really go into it here. Y'all want to know what I'm talking about? Check out my Patreon where I go into detail over this. Let's see what other news is going on. Man, I wish I could really get into that, but I can't. Let's see. Andy Biggs said only way Kevin McCarthy becomes House Speaker is if he gets Democrat support. That's bad. That's bad. Let's see. Michigan considers requiring 100% renewable energy by 2035, a goal far from current generation. None of that stuff is sustainable. It's not sustainable. Baby boy 25 weeks heads home for Christmas after miracle recovery. Amen for that. Slimiest Clinton pal David Brock sets up new nonprofit to re-elect the big guy in 2024. Defend Hunter Biden. Ooh, I hope Biden runs in 2024. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. I don't think he can make it. Oh man, because he can't win. Cornelia Harris whines that the media won't cover the quote things I've done as vice president that fully demonstrate the strength of my leadership as vice president. That is a joke. Everyone knows that she hasn't done anything. Even when they asked Jean Pierre at the press conference, they asked her, it was like, hey, can you give us one thing that Kamala Harris did in her job as vice president? And she couldn't name anything. She was stumped. She was flabbergasted. Let's see. Judicial corruption. Judge tosses out Abe Hamadeh's election challenge in Arizona Attorney General race. Let's see what else we got going on here. Nothing new in January 6th committee final report, but that doesn't make it insignificant. TikTok parent spied on U.S. journalist locations, then lied about it. So bite that spying on y'all. I told y'all about TikTok. Nothing else there. I said a lot of people are on Christmas break, so a lot of these news haven't been updated. Alright. Public school climate curriculum. Emotion should outweigh rational thinking. I had read this article earlier. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. They're talking about going with emotion instead of being rational. So that's emotions is not science. It's not science. Because they know they don't have the science behind it. All this stuff is made up. The new public school climate curriculum for Washington State instructs teachers to focus on emotions rather than rational thinking, lesson plans show. The new woke lesson plans were revealed in a 5-part curriculum plan released by the Washington State Department of Health. The Health Department claims the new curriculum aims aims to help students learn the, quote, intersections of biological, societal, and environmental issues. Whenever you hear that word intersectional, or anything like that, that's when you need to run away. That's when they try to put things together that have no business being together. In the second phase of the curriculum, quote, climate change and pregnancy, educators and students are told to, quote, pay attention to their emotions, not science, not do your research and use critical thinking and be rational and logical and use evidence. None of that stuff. They said use your emotions, how you feel about it. Quote, for too long, science has caused, quote, rational thinking to be prioritized, the health department admits. Okay. So this is the health department. They're supposed to be based on science. Are telling you to not use rationality, but use your emotions. So when you go to your doctor and you're having a headache, you want your doctor to, or you're having an issue, you want your doctor to say, well, I feel like this might work, or you want your doctor to say, okay, I got evidence that this thing might work. This is ridiculous, man. But, quote, as teachers and students consider the impacts of climate change, we should be mindful of the emotional dimensions of the human experience, the curriculum stated. For too long, science and science education have prioritized my rational thinking. As we delve more deeply into the impacts of climate change using the Washington Tracking Network data and the practices of the next generation science standards, we must learn to pay attention to our own emotions and those of other people. The curriculum notes that emotions, quote, signal alignment or discord between cultural values and technical assertions, and that failing to acknowledge emotions reflect arrogance. So now if you use logic and reasoning and leave your emotions out of it, and you want to deal with fact and data, you consider arrogant. This is ridiculous. This is what they're teaching our kids. Ignoring emotions can also, quote, weaken important relationships for getting things done. The climate change curriculum noted. The curriculum continues by asking students to consider, quote, sexism in science, which includes, quote, subtle discussion dynamics and abuse of power. This is all buzzwords we heard before. This is all the same. This is the same playbook that we're seeing. They're doing this with every single, not just science. It's in everything that has to do with kids. They're trying to indoctrinate our kids, man. Students are asked to raise their hand if they have experienced any sexism, such as eye rolling in jokes, or someone being unwilling to learn about issues important to women. What does any of that have to do with so-called climate change? That's a scam anyway, but what does any of that have to do with that? What does that have to do with science? See, this is the ridiculousness that they're teaching. Just nonsense. Alright, let's see what else we got going on here. I already talked about Kamala Harris whining. Let's see. Something on COVID that I can't talk about here, but I think I've reported on this before on my Patreon about what it does to your heart. Lindsey Graham gives Joe Biden direct order, get your ass out of the White House and go to the border. He don't care. He's not going to the border. He don't care about the border. He don't have to. They're not gonna hold him to that, so he's not worried about it. Woke universities are dropping high-profile ranking systems for diversity. They've been doing that though. U.S. Marines step in to stop robbery in California. Quote, it was the Marines. They stepped it up time to fight that. Economic Forum agenda for Davos 2023 will focus on push for more censorship. Of course, I think I might have reported on that before, on some of their agendas. Yeah, I think I did a previous video on their agenda for 2023. Let's see what this says. This may be going into more detail with the censorship. I know the censorship was one of the things they said they were going to talk about. The World Economic Forum coming annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland next month will focus on new efforts to ramp up censorship globally. World leaders, politicians, and corporate power elites will be flocking to the Swiss resort in January for the 2023 summit. Investigative journalist Jordan Satchel has published details of the exclusive ruling class only event, including a list of speakers and key points of discussion. Like I said, I did cover that. Founded by German economist Klaus Schwab. Never trust anyone named Klaus. The WEF is a fanatical political organization masquerading as a neutral entity. They just care about keeping their power, clamoring the power and keeping their power. That's what the World Economic Forum is to keep poor people poor and to keep the money in their hands. That's what they do. The organization has specific policy goals that involve centralizing power. See, that's exactly what I was alluding to. The way to keep control is centralizing power. Take away power from the people and keep it in a small number of hands. Centralizing power in the hands of hand-picked global elites as the only means to save the planet from an alleged climate emergency. And they use these things. That's why the whole climate change thing, they use that to control you. What they doing in New Zealand by shutting down all these farms. So in a time where people is having a hard time putting food on the table, everything is expensive. Why would you kill the farms? That makes absolutely no sense, unless you intentionally try to destroy people's means of being self-sufficient. And that's why you got people like Bill Gates pushing this fake meat and stuff and buying up all these farmlands. Schwab and his allies in the WEF dictate their own agenda to leaders of sovereign nations. As Slay News has reported, Schwab openly gloats that several world leaders are in his pockets and that he has installed WEF operatives in the upper echelons of powerful government administrations. Now, in 2017, Schwab boasted that the WEF has penetrated global cabinets and controls the leaders of several sovereign nations, including Germany, Russia, Canada, Argentina, and France. They got the video from saying it here, but I'm not going to play it. Let me see, how long is this video? I'll play it. It's only a minute. Let's play this video real quick. Let's hear him say how much he controlled the world.
And I have to say, when I mention our names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a
He said we penetrate the cabinets. We penetrate the cabinets.
Wow. At a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
And that's true in Argentina too. Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina and it's true in France now. I mean, with the president, with a young global leader. But what is important for
Wow. Wow. So he admit what we already knew, that they control that he control these governmental figures here. Um, the annual Davos conference acts as an ultra exclusive in-person narrative and ideas exchange for the hand-picked ruling class. Schwab openly advocates for, quote, green transition through his misleading name stakeholder capitalism agenda, which amounts to technocratic tyranny. Moments such as the Great Reset, Build Back Better, and ESG agenda were pieced together by WEF stakeholders at previous Davos confabs. And y'all know I talked about all three of those in great detail. The Great Reset I talk about a lot. Build Back Better, that's Joe Biden plan right there, which was nothing more than a green agenda. And then you got the ESG agenda with BlackRock and all of them pushing for another green agenda there, and true scores and all that other stuff. And why are they pushing this green agenda, this fake stuff, this fake global warming stuff? Because they want to be able to control. They want to be able to tax you, take your money and put it and align their pockets with it. That's why what's the old vice president name? Al Gore. That's why they got all these stock exchanges where they get this climate money and all that stuff. The stock exchanges. That's what that's for. It's for them to transfer money from your pocket, your tax money and stuff like that, into their pocket. The dossier has obtained an early potential list of both events and confirmed speakers for Davos 23. Among the agenda are discussions on, quote, tracking harm in the digital era, which seeks to brainstorm ideas on how to wrap up censorship online. The move is likely a response to Elon Musk's effort to wipe out censorship on Twitter. You know they were going to come heavy on him. I think Elon Musk didn't exactly know how much what he was in for when he took over Twitter, and then when he took over Twitter and he seen like how much governmental entities and our deep state in particular had their hands into it, I think he was like, whoa, it's a little bit more than I can choose. And he's backing off. Well, I think he's gonna let someone else run the company. But the program for Davos 2023 include events as, again, I went over these before, why we need battery passports, leading the charge through Earth's new normal, featuring Al Gore. So you know what that's about if Al Gore's in it. A living wage for all, yeah, right. Enabling equitable transition. There's that another buzzword there, equitable. Beyond the rainbow, advancing the LGBTQ rights. You know that was going to be something in there. You know they're going to throw them in there because they're being used just like they use everything else. They just don't understand that they're being used to further the globalist agenda. Advancing racial and ethnic equity. They go to the buzzword again, and this is moderated by, of course, who other than CNN. Decarbonizing supply chains, moderated by Chinese state television. So, one of the biggest polluters out there, China, is talking about decarbonizing something. You can't make this stuff up. Finding the right balance for crypto, and you know that they don't want they want to centralize the decentralized platforms. That's what that's about. Tackling harm in the digital era, and that's about censorship there. So yeah. In recent months, WEF agenda has received fierce blowback in the United States from both the civilian population and leaders of free states in America. It's not yet clear what the American contingent at Davos will look like for 2023 meeting. In 2022, it included 25 politicians and top Biden administration officials. The U.S. Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo joined climate czar John Kerry to represent Democrat President Joe Biden's White House at the event. So yeah, I can't wait to find out what comes out of that. You know, I'm gonna be on it. A couple years ago, they had True News over there, who y'all know I listen to all the time, and they came back with some great information. I doubt they would let them back over there because they let too much out. Let's see, Elon Musk bust Pelosi, Schumer, and McConnell. What utter insanity that tens of billions are being spent for border security of other countries, but none for ours, and that's true. Tulsi Gabbard rips incompetent DC politicians. They either don't care or they are purely incompetent. Either way, they're failing at their jobs. I agree with that. Alright, so that's all I'm going to go over to tonight. I'll be back later on with some more news. But let me know what y'all think about all this stuff. Check out democrepublics.com for the latest in news and share this out so we can get this information out there. Until next time, peace.